Yeah, you lit.
What's going on, everybody? What is going on? It is Friday, February 9th, 2024. If you have not done so already, make sure to go ahead and smash that like button, hit that share button. If you are newly subscribed to the channel, welcome, and shout out to all of the current and returning subscribers. I'm glad you all here. Shout out to everybody who's over on Patreon. Shout out to all of the members on the channel, everybody in Discord, on Twitter, on Instagram, everybody who sends me stories. I am greatly appreciative of that. So as y'all can see by the title, you would think we only had just those things to talk about today. Otherwise, if that was the case, this stream would be very short. But because I'm only allowed a limited amount of characters, I couldn't type everything else. But let me tell you right now, if y'all can see the tabs above the search bar right now, you can see we definitely have way more to talk about than what's in the title. That's just what I was able to fit. But we got way more than that. As a matter of fact, the first 30 minutes of this stream are probably going to be dedicated to updates to stories that I've talked about already on my channel. Just on updates. Everything else is going to be something brand new. But let me go ahead now and acknowledge the people who are here so far in the chat. We got SD Johnson, Jerry Bedford, John Guillory, William Denise Scales, Hacksign KT, DSM Sinister, Kid Gravity, Beyond, Lady Messenger, Crew Reality, Kells 517, Till Dog 12, Wallow J, 007 Spidey 2, Chris Rockshoe, Mariam R, Donna C, Darlene Parsons, Black Knight Discussions, Retro Gemini 99, Alicia Givens, Letitia Dewani Nelson, Mr. Williams, and Jonathan Richardson, and Ryan James is in the chat. But I hope everybody is having a good day. I hope everybody had a good week. I know that I had a pretty good week myself. I have no complaints. But like I said, it's a lot of updates today, y'all. It's a lot of updates. As a matter of fact, I think the first 4 stories I'm going to talk about are all updates, and 2 of them are attached to the same person. They're 2 different updates, but they're attached to the same person. Y'all, let me tell you something right now. The last couple of videos that I've recorded were for Patreon. That's how many videos I have that are stored that have not been uploaded yet. When I tell y'all I am backed up, I mean just that. The last like 2 or 3 videos that I recorded are for my Patreon. And if y'all are not subscribed to the Patreon, first off, if you are in the chat right now and you are subscribed to my Patreon, please put a P in the chat. P for Patreon. If you are subscribed to my Patreon and you're in the chat right now, please put a P in the chat and let the people know the type of stories that I put over there. I'm telling y'all, they are some crazy, wild stories that are not for YouTube. I wouldn't even put some of these stories into my live streams. That's how intense and extreme they are. especially the last 3 videos I think that I recorded. They are absolutely off the chain. These people are insane out here. Till Dog said, have you watched or will you review the Book of Clarence? Probably not. If I was going to watch it, I would have watched it already and y'all would have been got the review. Honestly. You know, I haven't been to the movies so far this year. Like, it hasn't been a movie that came out this year as far as a theatrical release that I've wanted to see yet. As a matter of fact, I think it probably won't be that way until like maybe March, honestly. Darlene says, how do you get to Patreon? It's ironic that you said that because the Nightbot just posted the comment, the automatic comment right underneath the comment you left. So all you got to do is click that and then you join. It is subscription based. The minimum is $5 a month. And what I try to do is I try to give y'all at least 2 videos a week because I try to do it like 1 video every 3 days. Wallow J says, am I going to watch the Bob Marley movie? I'm not entirely, honestly, it doesn't pique my interest. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. And that's nothing against, you know, Bob Marley and anything like that. But the movie for me does not pique my interest really at all. Like, really, to be quite honest with you. Spidey said, am I looking forward to BMF season 3? I am. I would say that the second season was a little bit lackluster on some parts, except outside of the Lucille and Charles and Miss Mabel storyline. That was the storyline a lot of people looked forward to every week in season 2. And that's crazy because those are side characters. They're not even the main part of the story. They helped guide the story along, but they weren't the main draw. They are not the main storyline protagonists. But yeah, for those of you who subscribe to the Patreon, shout out to you, and I'm greatly appreciative of it. And one thing I like about Patreon is that they will actually send you an email whenever I upload the new video, and I try to have them out at 8 a.m. Eastern time whenever the video does go up, so I can schedule it and all of that good stuff. But I like that they send an email. I know this because they send the email to me, and I'm the one that put it out there. So I know if I got the email, everyone else did as well. What's going on, Tamika? But y'all, let's go ahead and just get started with these stories. Like I told you, the first few updates that I had, or the first few stories I'm talking about, are all update based, meaning I've talked about them already, but these are just updates that have come along. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is Jonathan Majors. So Jonathan Majors, in case y'all are unaware, his sentencing was supposed to be this past Monday, the 6th, this Monday that just passed 3 days ago. But it got delayed until April. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article coming from Vulture to see if we can find out why his sentencing got delayed. It says Jonathan Majors' sentencing in his domestic violence case was delayed until April 8th, 2024, as the fallen Marvel star's lawyers are pushing for the guilty verdict to be thrown out. Majors was originally scheduled to be sentenced on February 6, 2024. Majors was found guilty of assault and harassment in his Manhattan domestic violence case on December 18, 2023, following a 3-week trial. The proceedings stem from an incident on March 25, 2023, involving Majors and his then girlfriend, Grace Jabari. Majors has maintained that he is innocent. Majors appeared via video for the under 5-minute court proceeding. He sported a clay-colored sweater and seemed to be in good spirits. Before proceedings kicked off, his attorney, Priya Chaudhry, waved at him as to test the video feed, and he waved back. The case will not go forward with sentencing today because the defendant has filed, and I will make it a part of the court papers, a motion to set aside the verdict, Judge Michael Gaffey said. The prosecution has until March 5th to respond to the defense argument, and the Majors team has until March 12th to file the response. Gaffey said he will make a decision on the defense motion around early April. So I'm not going to read the rest of it because the rest of it is just really a rehashing of the trial. By this time, most of us, well, for those who did follow the trial, already know what was shown and what was going on. So that's that update. But not to be outdone by the delay of this of this sentencing, they followed up with the alley-oop of this nonsense right here, which is talking about allegedly there are some other people that have come out and said that Jonathan Majors harassed and assaulted them too. And I'm sitting here saying to myself, here they go. Like clockwork, what did Eddie Griffin say years ago? When a black man goes into Hollywood, he never leaves clean. That I don't know if he copyrighted that, but he should, because it is so true. Now, where was all of this last year? Now, I remember when all of this first happened, you had some people he went to school with, because he went to Yale, that claimed that he was this way and he was that way. But then I told people, let's see how long these accusations stick around. And sure enough, they didn't stick around long. And to my honest opinion, the reason why they didn't stick around that long is because when he started losing deals and endorsements and all of it and all roles and whatnot, they got out of it what they wanted, so they backed off. But now, when it comes out that they delayed the sentencing because they're trying to get the guilty verdict thrown out altogether, what happens literally 2 days later, on the 8th, 2 days later, Jonathan Majors accused of abuse by 2 more women Lovecraft Country crew members recalled difficult behavior. So now they're reaching even further back. Now, for those of you who are unaware, Lovecraft Country was his breakout role. That's how many of us got exposed to Jonathan Majors. At least that's how I got exposed to him. And Lovecraft Country was a good show. I don't care what anybody says. I was mad when they canceled it. For some reason, they got an issue with black people in lead roles and that involves sci-fi. And this was a show that combined sci-fi with history. I mean, you couldn't get better than that. And it was a really, really good show. For anyone who watched it, y'all can attest to that. So it says 2 women came forward with new abuse allegations against Jonathan Majors on Thursday, accusing the disgraced actor of physical and emotional abuse in a report from the New York Times. The report also cited interviews with 20 other people who allege that Majors has a quote-unquote history of of being violent. I'll put it that way, per the Times. And that he repeatedly confronted female co-workers while on the set of HBO series Lovecraft Country, leading several to complain to the network. Well, my thing is this: Lovecraft Country came out in 2017. It is now 2024. Why are you just now saying that? If it was an issue back then, why didn't you say it back in 2017 when the show was on the air? You could have got him. If that was your goal, you could have cut him off at the ankles right then and there before he started to blow up. See, they lying. They are lying. The Times report references accounts from Emma Duncan and Maura Hooper, who say they dated Majors between 2013 and 2019. Duncan told the Times that Majors physically and emotionally abused her, and Hooper alleged emotional abuse. Per the report, both women described Majors as a controlling, threatening figure who isolated them from friends and career pursuits. So now they got to paint this. Now they're painting him more up to be again the big black boogeyman. Like he is like the ultimate villain. Priya Chaudhry, a lawyer for Majors, told the Times that the relationships with Duncan and Hooper were both toxic, admitting that he did say hurtful things but denied most of the claims of physical abuse and said he did not know about the HBO complaint. In Chaudhry's response, also obtained by the Hollywood Reporter, she said while Majors and Duncan's relationship was mutually emotionally volatile, he did not physically abuse her. The new revelations come only 2 months after Majors was found guilty of reckless assault in the 3rd degree and harassment in the 2nd degree, stemming from an incident in March 2023 between the actor and his ex-partner, Grace Jabari. The latter testified that while the two were riding in a car, she saw a text message on his phone suggesting he was cheating on her and grabbed it from him. I'm not going to continue reading that because, again, we know all about this part. You lose your sense of worth, Duncan told the Times of her relationship with Majors. She also said she was engaged to the actor from 2015 to 2019. She and Hooper both recall Majors love bombing them early in their relationship, showering them with romantic gestures before ultimately turning physically or emotionally violent. In a statement submitted during the pretrial of Major's domestic violence case and obtained by the Times, which per the report was ultimately not permitted to be entered into evidence, Duncan alleged that Majors threatened to strangle and kill her in 2016. That same year, she also claims that he slammed her body into the mailbox during an argument, leaving bruises on her back and arms. A year later, she says he threw her onto the ground and bruised her head with his own. Hooper's relationship with Majors briefly overlapped with Duncan's, though neither woman knew at the time. In the pretrial statement obtained by the Times, Hooper claimed she was not allowed to speak to anyone about their relationship, isolating her from a support system. She also recalled getting pregnant several months into their relationship and Major refusing to pick her up at the clinic after she underwent an abortion. Led to believe Majors would not allow her to discuss the procedure with anyone else, Hooper says she walked herself home. I felt trapped and alone, she told the Times. After their breakup, Hooper recalled Majors discovered she was in a relationship with someone he knew. She claims he called her on the phone to tell her she was a whore and said, I hope you die, kill yourself. And I'm going to rip you out of my heart the way they ripped our baby out of you. She and Duncan also both claimed that Majors repeatedly threatened to kill himself throughout their relationship. I got a question for y'all. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all believe this. Put a 2 if you don't. Because like I said, where was all of this years ago? And why now? This sounds like that story that Vin Diesel's former assistant tried to tell last year about something that happened allegedly between the two of them back in 2013. I'm like, that happened 10 years ago, allegedly, and you're just now telling all of this now. Okay. I side-eyed this whole thing. I side-eyed her entire story. Well, their story, I should say, because it's two women. Yep, but let the witch hunt begin. Let it begin. All it took was one, and y'all already know what I say about the domino effect. When one domino falls, the rest are going to fall with it until the last domino falls. But we'll be following this, hopefully. And the crazy thing is, they said he's not going back into that courtroom until April 8th. Anything can happen between now and April 8th. This is less than 2 months away. But anyway, let's move on to the next story, y'all. The next update. Now, I haven't talked about this dude in a while, but since I got wind of it, why not? And that is none other than the welfare king himself, Brett Favre. It's been a while since I talked about old Brett Favre, that thief. Well, apparently, it says he still owes the state of Mississippi $730,000, according to the auditor of the state. And it's crazy. If you've ever just type certain things involving Brett Favre, he posts stuff on social media to try to deflect away from the obvious. Like, dude, we don't care who you buddy with, or we don't care who you associate yourself with, and we don't care if you went to go play golf. We know that you stole this money for whatever reasons. We know one of them was to get that volleyball facility built for your daughter. And you still are the welfare king down there in Mississippi. You got all that money from endorsements, your net worth, and you still decided to steal. And still hasn't been criminally charged. Now look at this subheading. Favre repaid the $1 million he received, but the state said he owes more. They said you are going to pay what you owe. Isn't that what Riley said in the Boondocks when he wrote that letter to Santa Claus? You are going to pay what you owe. Brett Favre may have repaid the ill-gotten $1.1 million he was given for phony speaking engagements as part of the Mississippi welfare fraud scheme, but the state is still claiming that he has a hefty bill remaining. Shad White, a state auditor who Favre sued in 2023 for defamation of character, issued a countersuit to Favre this week, claiming the NFL Hall of Famer still owes Mississippi $729,000 and $729,790 from funds which were misappropriated from the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families Fund and given to the football player. It's White's assertion that Favre be forced to pay principal and interest on the $1.1 million he received as part of the welfare scheme, arguing that even in repaying the amount, Favre essentially received an interest-free loan. It boggles the mind that Mr. Favre could imagine he is entitled to the equivalent of an interest-free loan of $1.1 million in taxpayer money, especially money intended to benefit of the poor. Now that lawyers from the Office of the State Auditor are trying this case, we are going to ensure Mr. Favre is held accountable for his acts and omissions. Favre has routinely asserted that he didn't know where the funds came from. He's still lying. He's still lying. We've been seeing the text that says, or that you wrote, asking or saying, are you going to make sure that they don't know about this? It's amazing how easy he lies to himself and to the public. Like we didn't see those text messages. Despite there being mounting evidence that he was a key player in arranging meetings between those who executed the welfare fraud, as well as having direct contact with former Governor Phil Bryant over using the funds to build a new volleyball center at the University of Southern Mississippi, there has been no statement from Favre over the lawsuit at this time. And like y'all said, he still has not been criminally charged, and nope, not even a court date. That's why I say we got to stay on top of this story, because they're going to bury this. They want this buried as much as they possibly can. For many of you, this is probably your first time hearing about this, anything about Brett Favre related since the last time I talked about him. And I'll be honest, the last time I talked about Brett Favre was maybe late last year. And shout out to Jay Cage for the $5 super chat. He said, peace and B1 Torian and fam, peace and B1 to you. So now that we got that out of the way, let's move on to the next update. Like I told you, like a lot of this stuff is like the first few stories are updates before I get into the new stuff. So who remembers the Cody Herron story? Happened in Philadelphia, where you had this biker that went viral, where he was kicking this woman's car. He broke the back window with the kids in the car, and he almost got into it. Well, there's been an update that came from that, and it says that he's pled guilty to assaulting her. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this little clip right here and see what they're talking about. It's only 48 seconds.
Update on a case involving a viral video that shows a biker jumping on a mother's car with her two kids inside. Well, that biker pleaded guilty to charges including aggravated assault. Prosecutors say that Cody Herron shattered the car's rear windshield and pointed a gun at the woman near City Hall. This was in October after she got out to confront him. The viral video also shows that Herron headbutted the woman with his helmet. Authorities say violent incidents like this one have no place in the city.
We're happy to report that this kind of case and this incident does signify that we are taking these matters seriously, and then more importantly, that reckless driving of these dirt bikes is not to be tolerated here in our city.
So authorities say that they were able to identify Herron.
So there it is right there. That was man, listen, I can't even begin to say on here what I would have done to this dude. Like, did y'all see that he got on top of this woman's car with her two kids in the back seat? Now, these were small kids, because I believe they were in car seats, in the back seat, and jumped on this woman's back window and shattered it while the kids were in the back seat. Now, I didn't hear any reports that the kids suffered any injuries from like shattered shards of glass, which is a good thing. But still, I can only imagine how scared they were. And then went around and pointed the gun in her face. Y'all saw it, pointed the gun in her face, headbutted her with the helmet on. They didn't show the whole thing, but she like kind of grabbed him and kind of like pushed him, and then he got on his bike and drove off. And they got the nerve to call us savages. So all it says is that he pled guilty, which means they're probably going to try to seek out a plea deal. But I don't see. Well, he's a PC man in America, so who knows what might happen. But in a perfect world, he would probably get more charges, and for sure this will be an open and shut case. It just says that he pled guilty after he was charged with aggravated assault. Although I saw more than just aggravated assault. It says on 2 counts and possessions of an instrument of crime, which of course was the power tool. Well, also the helmet, because when he headbutted her, he used that helmet as a weapon. DSM Sinister says, wasn't he the PC who got outed by his employer? I'm not sure. I can't remember how his identity got put out there. It may have been, the story's a little bit fuzzy because again, it happened back in October when it first happened, but I can't remember who exposed him. Okay, Gravity said, yeah, his boss dropped the details. Well, shout out to the boss for doing the right thing, because they could have kept that close to the vest. But that's that update right there. I'll try to see if I can keep up with this story. All this is that he just pled guilty. But like I said, they're probably trying to try to get him a plea deal so they can get it down to a lesser charge or try to get this whole thing dropped. But honestly, you can look at that and say you cannot possibly drop something like that. It's no way. Now moving on to the next update. We're going to be talking about Ethan Crumbley's ratchet mama. My goodness. And shout out to Professor Black Truth. He did his Friday crime report today on this woman. So Ethan Crumbley's mother was found guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in the deaths of 4 students, which means it sounds to me like she got found guilty on everything, which I wouldn't be mad at, for what her son did back in 2021. Let's get it.
We begin at 5 with a verdict in the historic trial of Jennifer Crumbley, the mother of the Oxford school shooter.
She faced 4 charges of involuntary manslaughter for failing to prevent her son's crime.
The 4 charges are for the 4 students shot and killed in November of 2021, Tate Meyer, Hannah St. Juliana, Madison Baldwin, and Justin Schilling.
13-year sides, Jeremiah Brown is in the newsroom now with that decision. Jeremiah.
Well, Juliet and Elena, earlier this afternoon, the jury found Jennifer Crumbley guilty on all 4 counts of manslaughter. Jennifer Crumbley's trial lasted nearly 3 weeks. Over the course of the trial, the prosecution offered evidence they say showed Jennifer and her husband were negligent parents. Prosecutors say the Crumleys failed to intervene when their child was clearly calling out for help, even writing the word help in one of his journals. They purchased the gun he used to kill 4 of his classmates in November 2021. During the trial, Jennifer Crumbley testified in her own defense, saying she had a strong relationship with their son and she trusted him to come to her about anything. The jury of 6 women and 6 men, some of whom are parents and some of whom are also gun owners, deliberated for about 11 hours in total over 2 days to reach their verdict. Craig Schilling, the father of shooting victim Justin Schilling, gave his reaction after hearing the verdict.
And it's not really about winning or losing, it's about, making it apparent that, this has to stop in society, and, you know what, it's going to go all the way now. I mean, there's no way to look the other way. You have to address things on every level, and it's very clear now.
He says his message for parents is to do your due diligence with your children, and that parents cannot put their own interests over their children, especially when it comes to mental health concerns. Jennifer Crumbley could face a maximum of 15 years in prison per count. She and her husband, James Crumbley, are the first parents in U.S. charged with a mass school shooting committed by their child. James Crumbley's trial is scheduled for next month. Their 17-year-old son charged with killing his 4.
I'm gonna pause it right there because I know what they're gonna say. They're just gonna say that Ethan Crumbley was found guilty of all the charges and he got sentenced to life in prison, which was to be expected. Did y'all hear that last part he said? He said they are the first parents ever in U.S. history in the court system to be found guilty of mass shooting that their child committed. I want y'all to let that sink in, considering how many mass shootings have occurred around the establishment over the years. And they're the first parents ever to be found guilty for a mass shooting or mass murder, because they died, of what their child did. Now, you want to know how I'm not surprised that Jennifer Crumbley was found guilty? You want to know how I know I wasn't surprised? Because her son was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life. So naturally, that was going to happen with her. And the same thing is going to happen with the husband. All the evidence was there. They basically were enablers. And they said she's getting 15 years per count. So she's going to be there for quite some time. So that's that update right there. Good riddance to her. So the last update that I'm going to talk about before I get into the more newer stories is, of course, update on what happened in New York. Now, in case y'all are unaware, in New York last week, there was some south of the Borderians who jumped these NYPD cops and then they fled. Well, the first part I have to tell you before I get into this part is, you know how they said, oh, they fled and they found them in Phoenix or something like that? Well, actually, it turned out those that they got out there were not the ones that they were looking for. This was a whole different crop of south of the Borderians that they arrested out there in Phoenix. These ones right here, I think they made it all the way like to California or something like that. But this update right here is interesting because really is not being talked about like that. It says the south of the Borderians who fled after beating an NYC police used stolen phones to buy cars and pools back home. They stole phones and credit cards to make purchases in Ecuador and Venezuela. But wait a minute, y'all. I got a question for the chat. I thought they said that they were coming over here to work. Isn't that what they said? Isn't that what they said? That they're coming over here for a better life? That they're coming over here to work? I didn't know stealing phones to buy cars and pools back at home and getting credit cards to make purchases was work. So you came over here, you fled from your homeland to come over here and scam and scheme to have a pipeline of funds go back to your homeland that you're probably not going to go back to anyway. Just to probably use that same pipeline to shuffle more people over here and then keep the cycle going. But they said they came over here to work. That's what I heard. I thought they said they were coming over here to work. Sounds to me like they lied. The illegal, the not so secret invasioners who fled to California after allegedly assaulting a pair of New York City police officers are part of a wider conspiracy of stealing phones to make lavish purchases in their home countries, according to a New York Post report. A police source told the Post the illegal immigrants routinely steal phones and use the Apple Pay and credit card information inside to purchase cars, pools, and other luxuries back home. They're buying cars back in Ecuador and Venezuela, the police source told the Post. They're putting pools in their homes. All this money is going back and forth. That's why the larcenies are going out of control. It's unbelievable what they are doing. 4 men involved in the attack on police last week had their bus tickets to California paid for by taxpayers. Let me read that part again. 4 men in the attack on police last week had their bus tickets paid for to California by taxpayers, as in the ones whose credit cards they stole. That was the taxpayers. Chillmonger, yes, I just said that. Paid for by the taxpayers. The City Office of Emergency Management has been supplying travel vouchers to SOBs who approach participating nonprofit groups and ask for help leaving the overburdened city, according to law enforcement sources. Those vouchers can be used for various means of transportation, including buses. A handful of the suspects in the shocking attack after being freed without bail are believed to have swapped immigration numbers with other people at their shelter and used the misappropriated identities to obtain vouchers and tickets under fake names, a law enforcement source told Fox News, Digital last week. Darwin Gomez, Kelvin Arocha, Wilson Juarez, and Yorman Reverend fled to California after being released without bail. Authorities have since apprehended 3 more: Johan Boada, Jandre Barros, and Yohenry Brito. So they fled their country to come here and then did what they did, scheme and scam, and then fled New York to go to California. Natural born fleers. At a news conference Friday, Governor Kathy Hochul, and she's going to be a topic of discussion soon, later on in this live stream, says she wanted to speak with Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. See, Alvin Bragg, I told y'all about that man, Alvin Bragg. This man is the reason why Jonathan Majors is in the situation he's in right now. But you want to worry about Jonathan Majors, but you got this stuff going on right now. Now, if anybody needs to be out of their position, it's definitely him. About why most of the suspects were released without bail and said prosecutors should have sought to keep them jail. Well, here's the thing. It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, they were welcoming them in with open arms. And now on the other hand, they're upset behind it. Why? Because the people who got attacked were cops. Oh, but when they were dumping them off in majority black neighborhoods, it was all good. But now that it's touching them, it's a problem. And shout out to Blacklight Revelations for being a member of the channel for 11 months. It says, join the I Feel Nothing crew. Definitely. And I appreciate you for being an ongoing member. Certainly an assault on a police officer is bail eligible, Hochul told reporters. There are over 100 crimes that can also lead to deportation. And so that is also something I want to have a conversation with the district attorney about his options here. Well, here's the thing. Y'all ain't working fast enough. Apparently you want them here. But the thing is, it's probably too late. Y'all have let this thing fester and overflow to the point where it's out of your hands. You let them come over here because you want it to be a sanctuary city, and you let them nest for too long. And it didn't. And the thing is, honestly, it wasn't even that long. A lot of them started getting busy literally 2 weeks after they got here. Trust me, I've been on this. Some of them been acting up, and they weren't even here for a whole month. It did not take them long. Many of them had a game plan before they got over here. But what do I know? That is insane. That is crazy. And shout out to everybody who came into the chat. Make sure y'all go ahead and hit that like button. I'll appreciate it. Man, this is This is great. To my subscribers up in New York, I don't know how y'all are handling, how y'all are dealing with this, but this is insane. This is wild right here. But now let me move on to the main stories. I've gotten all the updates out of the way. I told y'all it was a lot of updates this week, a lot of them. So let's start. This is the beginning right here of the news stories, like the stuff that's come out this week. Like these are the brand new, or maybe in the last week or so. What's going on, Carla? So some of you may or may not have heard about this story, but I didn't know about this until last week, where you had this guy, and I'm talking about this guy right here on the right, the one where my cursor is hovering over, who murdered his co-worker at Target because he claimed he stole his lunch from the fridge. Now, I'm all about boundaries. Taking somebody's lunch, that's messed up. That is very messed up, especially if you don't have any money maybe on hand for you to want to get something else, or maybe you was craving it and you just didn't want to buy anything that day, and someone just straight up, took your lunch or something like that. That's why if you have a workplace and y'all share a common refrigerator, you need to label your stuff. That way, if they take it, for certain, you have proof that someone stole your lunch and that was yours. Think that they're always going to think that it's yours. But at the same time, you didn't bring it in, so you shouldn't touch it anyway. Or have a little personal fridge by your desk, under your desk, especially if you work like in a government setting, like a government federal position at a desk in a cubicle. Just have a little mini fridge right there under your desk. That way you don't have to share the fridge with anybody else. However, at the same time, I would not go to the extreme of what this guy did of deleting your coworker in this brutal way over some food. So it says, prosecutor says Bazen, Berhe, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, plotted the 2021 murder of Hernan Leyva before attacking him in the parking lot of the Target store where they both work. Now, I was wondering why or how he got the first degree murder charge, because I was like, how was this the murder in the first degree? But now reading that, it said he plotted to do this. A Virginia man was sentenced to 100 years in prison this week for stabbing and beating his coworker to death after accusing him of stealing his lunch. Now, this happened in Fairfax, Virginia. I am familiar with Fairfax, Virginia. I've been to Fairfax, Virginia plenty of times. Bazen Berhe, age 25, of Alexandria, and I'm familiar with Alexandria. You actually got to go through Alexandria to get to Fairfax. Was handed down the 100-year sentence with 30 years suspended in the 2021 death of 58-year-old Hernan Leyva, the Fairfax County Commonwealth's attorney announced Tuesday. In total, Berhe will spend 70 years behind bars. He reportedly confessed to the crime and pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in October 2023. Prosecutors said Berhe killed Leyva on April 17, 2021 in the parking lot of the Target in Bailey's Crossroads where they both worked. Berhe claimed he became upset with Leyva, who was a janitor at the store, after believing he stole his lunch from the work fridge on April 14, 2021. Now, peep that. It said after believing he stole his lunch. It didn't say that he did. He assumed that he did. So it's not even etched in stone that this guy took the lunch. He just assumed he did, which is not a good thing. Clearly. Over the course of the next 3 days, prosecutor says Berhe plotted the killing of Leyva before attacking him in the parking lot. It began with Berhe buying a hammer and 2 knives while leaving his shift at Target the day after he accused Leyva of stealing and spent the following day, quote unquote, training for murder. On the day of the murder, Berhe reportedly waited for Leyva in the parking lot. Once Leyva arrived for his shift, the prosecutor said Berhe fatally stabbed and bludgeoned Leyva before fleeing the scene. And shout out to AW1 for being a member for 22 months. He says, what's up, Torian? And you're the man. I appreciate it. Thank you for being a continued member for going on now 2 years. At his sentencing, Berhe reportedly threatened to kill or hurt other people if he was not given the harshest sentence possible. Well, I think he pretty much cemented his stay. He said he would kill or hurt other people if they didn't give him the harshest sentence possible. He let the people in the court and that judge know, the public is more safer with me behind bars than me outside in public society. Well, I don't think they was going to put you back out there after you did this anyway, but he said, you better keep me in jail for as long as possible, longer than a year, longer than 10. So he's accepted it. In a GoFundMe campaign launched following his death, Leyva, a father, was remembered by his loved ones as someone who had a joyous spirit and lively sense of humor. He was an exemplary figure and beacon of light in your moment of darkness. In the statement, Descano said Mr. Leyva's unnecessary and tragic death leaves behind a grieving family and community, one that will never be the same after such a senseless act of violence. In this case, because of the unique and self-proclaimed danger the defendant continues to pose to the community, today's sentence was a necessary outcome for maintaining public safety. Miss Renee said, is he from America? He must not be. Oh, definitely not. His name is Bazen Berhe. And you can look at him in the picture, which is this guy right here, and tell he is definitely not a Black American, not by a long shot. The Dr. Carpy said, this doesn't even sound real. I thought the same thing when I first heard about this. It sounds like something that was made for TV. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of wild stories out here that don't sound real. And I'm going to plug my Patreon right now. If you subscribe to the Patreon, it's a lot of unbelievable stories over there. Trust me. Trust me. So there's that story right here. Now we have this other story right here that's probably going to piss a lot of Black people off. I know it pissed me off. We're out in Vermont. You had this mother call the police to talk to her son about stealing, and then he ended up being handcuffed and sedated. And I'm not going to play the video from Associated Press, but what? Now this is a Black family, y'all. This is a Black family that called the cops on their son because they said that they wanted him to talk to him about stealing. I'm sitting here saying to myself, why would you do that if he stole something? You think they're coming to talk? You think they're actually coming to talk if he stole something? No. They're going to treat him like a criminal. And Kid Gravity said, and he was speeches, he was special needs. Why does this remind, you know what, I'm not even gonna say it. Wait, you said Rock Bushy said he heard he was in a white home, so, and Miss Renee said he was adopted. Oh, so he was adopted? Had to be, because I'm saying Vermont doesn't have a giant Black population at all whatsoever. So if he even still, why would you call the police for this situation? If he was special needs, he probably didn't even realize that he stole anything. A Vermont mother wanted to teach her then 14-year-old son a lesson after he came home with an electronic cigarettes he stole from a gas station, so she called the police. What happened next that evening in May 2021 is the basis for a lawsuit by the mother alleging that Burlington police used excessive force and discriminated against her unarmed son, who was Black and has behavioral and intellectual disabilities. After he failed to hand over the last of the stolen e-cigarettes, 2 officers physically forced him to do so. Then Kathy Austrian's son was handcuffed and pinned to the ground as he screamed and struggled, according to a civil lawsuit filed Tuesday and police body camera video shared with the Associated Press by the American Civil Liberties Union of Vermont. The teen eventually was injected with ketamine, a sedative, then taken to a hospital. Now, why does that sound so familiar? Y'all, let me know in the chat why this being injected with ketamine sounds so familiar. Exactly. Like Wallow J just put in the chat, Elijah McClain. He too was injected with ketamine. Unfortunately, he died. The same thing could have happened here, and it would have been her fault. The police chose to respond to my son with unprovoked violence and use of force when they could have and should have followed their own procedures and used safe, supportive methods. Well, no, you shouldn't have called them. If you didn't call them, it wouldn't have gotten to this point. The ordeal underscores the need for sufficient police training in dealing with people with disabilities and mental health challenges, which they never do for Black people, and raises questions about whether police are best suited to respond to such situations. A growing number of U.S. communities are responding to nonviolent mental health crises with clinicians and EMTs or paramedics instead of police. Burlington police officers had visited the home before and were aware of the teen's disabilities, the lawsuit says. Austrians fostered the child, who had developmental and intellectual disabilities like his birth mother, since he was 5 months old, and adopted him at age 2. The Associated Press generally doesn't identify minors who are accused of crimes or who are witnesses to them. Body camera video shows 2 officers talking calmly to the teen who was sitting on the bed. His mother tells him to cooperate. She goes through drawers and finds most of the remaining e-cigarettes and tries to get the last one from him. Officer says if he turns the e-cigarettes over, they'll leave and he won't be charged. He doesn't respond. After about 10 minutes, the officers move in to forcibly remove the last of the e-cigarettes from his hand by pulling his arms behind his back and pinning the 230-pound teen against the bed. My thing is this: it sounds to me like she didn't even tell them that this kid had that was special needs. Now, y'all remember what I talked about last week in my live stream last week, going back with to Miss Renee said in the chat, why are white people allowed to adopt Black children? Remember the story I did last week about that white academy couple who adopted that newborn Black baby girl and was brushing her hair all aggressively and was putting up that video on TikTok asking Black people how to manage this child's hair? Who knew the follow-up this week was going to be another one of these type of stories? I'm sensing, well, I'm not even sensing, been sensed the pattern. The turning point in this chain of events is when officers decided to go hands-on. There wasn't any urgency here. There wasn't any emergency where they had to force physical confrontation. The lawsuit seeks punitive damages against the city and monetary damages and relief for the teen. It also seeks an order for the city to accommodate people with disabilities in police interactions, including implementing officer training and modifying policies on ketamine use. The use of ketamine has come under scrutiny in Colorado, where 2 paramedics were convicted late last year for injecting Elijah McClain, a 23-year-old Black man, with an overdose of the sedative after police put him in a neck hole, and then he later died. I'm not even going to read the rest of it because it's just pissing me off even more. Point of the story is this chick should not have called the police about this, especially when you knew that this child was special needs. If they, and they said that wasn't the first time they had to call the police, so she's called the police before. But yeah, this is why a lot of Black people be questioning and side-eyeing when white people be adopting Black kids. It's crazy. Blacklight said that's why they killed Elijah McClain with, they aren't supposed to you be using that. There's no such thing as excitable delirium as junk science. Yeah, exactly. That's just something they came up with. They again. And then they make the adoption process so terrible, elongated for Black families to adopt just a child, but they allowed them to adopt a black child with the quickness because they got to put out this narrative that PC is the better parent. Okay, we just talked about not Elijah McClain. We just talked about Ethan Crumley's mother. Does that sound like a better parent or nah? And there's more where that came from, and that was her own child. Let's move on to the next story. Now, this one right here, I would not have known about if I did not talk about another story that I just talked about. And this is involving a South of the Borderian teenager from, I think, Venezuela. I'm not entirely sure, who literally shot a tourist in Times Square. I think it happened today. I think it happened today or yesterday. It was between today and yesterday. But I'm going to go ahead, before I say that, shout out to Val Williams for becoming a member of the channel. I greatly appreciate it.
When it was shot inside a sportswear store, totally innocent, when a shoplifter opened fire on an employee trying to stop him and two other people from stealing. The gunman got away after a foot chase during which he shot at an officer. Overnight, we obtained new video of the shooting in the store, new images of the gunman from police still on the run. Eyewitness News reporter Phil Tate live in Midtown with the very latest. Phil.
Yeah, Michelle, a massive manhunt is now underway, just trying to find that gunman that pulled the trigger as violence just spiraled from inside this sports star onto city streets. Well, that's as shots were fired moments after those teens were busted for shoplifting. I want you all to take a look at your screen right now. This is the person that police are actively searching for right now and who they believe to be responsible. Now, this all unfolded when cops say 3 suspects were stopped at the front door by a female store security guard. While the guard confronted one of the 2 men, she watched the other pull out a gun of a shoulder strap bag and ducked as he fired. He missed, instead striking a 37-year-old tourist from Brazil. While the guard tried to get that person help, the gunman took off. While cops say the gunman on the run was spotted on 6th Avenue and West 47th Street, ditching his white jacket, firing 2 shots during a pursuit at that officer, who thankfully was not hit and did not return fire. Well, right now, police also want to talk to a second person who was with the gunman and a third person in the group, a 15-year-old who stayed behind to talk to police and was released. He's a migrant resident of the Stewart Hotel. Meanwhile, police continue their investigation.
We have numerous resources scouring this area looking for that male. The other person was brought back to the precinct where he is there right now. So we're looking for one male. He is your shooter. He shot at our cops not once, but twice.
And JD Sports has recently reported a string of grand larcenies of folks trying to use stolen credit cards. Well, police tell us that some of these incidents have been traced back to migrants. That's the very latest in Midtown this morning. I'm Phil Tate, Channel 7 Eyewitness.
What did I say, everybody? Months ago, but actually, before I get into it, let me shout out to Carla for becoming a member of the channel as well. The Troubleman twins are here and a part of the I Feel Nothing crew. And also shout out to Black Voltron Reloaded for the 1999 super chat. He says good afternoon, and big B1 salute to you, brother Torian Rain Reloaded, the moderators, and the B1 certified family listening in on my way to work. I appreciate it. But what did I tell you last year? I said it, and I know I said it, and I know y'all heard me say it. I said it's going to start off small with their antics, and then it's going to escalate. This is a whole separate situation from what just happened last week. And on top of that, this isn't even an adult. This is a teenager. He's 15. He was right there and just went in a store and just started firing off and then shot somebody and then got into a shootout with the police and fled. Again, natural born fleer. And shout out to Denise for becoming a member of the channel. I greatly appreciate it. But I told y'all The criminality was going to start small from them just stealing stuff, and it was going to escalate to people actually getting hurt for real. You just had 4 or 5 of them jump some police last week. Now you got this one this week in the same state, firing off and shooting someone, and then getting into a shootout with the cops, and they got the nerve to call us the thugs. Has anyone noticed that now, whenever they talk about crime in Chicago, they're not talking about black people anymore? When's the last time you saw a post where they put all these astronomical numbers out there about black people committing all of these crimes or shootings and these phantom shootings? It's been a while, because every time something comes out about Chicago now, it's about people like the person on the screen, even though this is New York, but I'm just using that as an example. And the usual suspects barely, if rarely, talk about it because it's not us. It is probably kicking them in their rear end that it isn't us. And Wallow J, I saw the comment you left. It's cold now. Imagine how it's going to be when it gets warm. I don't know how many of y'all in the chat been to or live in New York, but New York has some hot summers. Trust me when I say that. I've experienced it. So when it gets hot outside, when it starts to get, no, not even when it gets hot, when it starts to get warm. So when you're talking about like late March, April, around that range, especially around May, oh, they going to cut up. Kid Gravy says it hasn't been a holiday lately. Well, we just had MLK. I didn't see anything from that. Welcome your new criminal class. Called it. Said it last year, and I'm saying it now. Welcome your new criminal class. This is who they wanted to bring in. And this is who they want to stay. But they want to act like they can't rein them in. It's amazing. This establishment has all the time in the world to be anti-black, but you got stuff like this running around out here actually committing major crimes, but they want to act like they can't get a lock in on them. And the thing is, you can physically see what they're doing out there in broad daylight. All I can say is that we told you. And to piggyback on what Wallow J just said, whatever they were doing in their homeland, they brought their bad habits to here. Whatever they were doing from whatever country they came from, they were doing it over there. Probably worse. They're just getting started. They're just getting started. Next story. Out of New York again. And I told y'all to put a pin in Kathy Hochul's name because I was going to be talking about her again. You know how they like to say black people stop looking for handouts and, you know, you're not going to get reparations? Well, guess what Kathy Hochul just did for a certain community? January 29th, 2024. Governor Kathy Hochul announces Holocaust claims processing office secured over $183 million for victims and beneficiaries. Not just victims, but also their descendants. I had posted this particular screenshot, this blue square, on Twitter the other day. That was my hint that I was going to eventually talk about it. And here we are. Governor Kathy Hochul today announced that the New York State Department of Financial Services Holocaust Claims Processing Office, which assists Holocaust victims and their heirs recover stolen assets, has helped secure and return over $183 million in compensation to victims and their heirs for bank, insurance, and other material losses. Excuse me. Additionally, through this initiative, the Department of Financial Services has facilitated settlements involving over 250 cultural objects since its inception in 1997. I want y'all to really pay attention to this statement. Through this initiative, this department, the same one that Kathy Hochul is using to get that $183 million to the descendants and the victims, this has been going on since 1997. And it says involving over 250 cultural objects. So this is not new. It's been going on since the 90s, maybe even before. But that's just as far back as they've documented it. With each passing year, our living memory of the Holocaust may get further away, but it is imperative that we stand firm on our goal of dispelling anti-Semitism, Hochul said. Hate has no home in New York, and my administration remains committed to uplifting Holocaust survivors. Pay attention. My administration remains committed to uplifting Holocaust survivors and their families while continuing to honor the memory of 6 million lives taken so far too soon. In other words, if you are outside of that parameter, she could give a damn about you, dear Black people. So what does that say? Don't go to Kathy asking for no dividends unless you fall into the Holocaust paradigm. Boom. She just told you what her administration is for and who it is for. Now, mind you, Black people did not vote for Kathy Hochul. She was put in that position after Andrew Cuomo got kicked out for his scandal. They put her there. Superintendent of Financial Services Adrian A. Harris said, at DFS, we are committed to honoring survivors and delivering justice to those who suffered through the unspeakable horrors of the Holocaust. The department will continue working to return these invaluable cultural artifacts and facilitate the restitution of long lost artworks for Holocaust victims and their families. AKA, we're going to just continue to give you more money. Now, what I found to be interesting is that the way that this is framing, you would think that they were the only ones that went through some kind of an atrocity like we didn't. And keep in mind, like Latonda wrote in the chat, where did the Holocaust happen? I'll give you a hint. It didn't happen here. The Holocaust Claims Processing Office is a unit of the New York State Department of Financial Services. It was created to help Holocaust victims and their heirs recover assets deposited in banks, unpaid proceeds of insurance policies issued by European insurers, and artworks that were lost, looted, or sold under duress. The HCPO does not charge claimants for its services. So basically, no strings attached. When they give you the money, you don't have to have, there's no tax incentive. So you get all of it. Since its inception, the HCPO has responded to thousands of inquiries and received claims from all 50 U.S. states and 53 countries. There you go. But they'll sit back and say, to us to stop looking for a handout, which this is the perfect segue into the next story that's also coming out of New York. Speaking of handouts, let's talk about the handout that Mayor Eric Adams, aka the Biden of Brooklyn, he said it, his words, not mine, who is about to spend about $53 million to give to the south of the Borderian in prepaid debit cards. Let me go ahead and turn this up so y'all can hear this.
A new pilot program to provide certain migrants staying in hotels with prepaid debit cards. Mayor Adams says the one-time cards will initially be given to 500 families with children in place of the current system of providing boxes of non-perishable food.
This is not an American Express card we're giving folks. It's a prepaid debit card only for food and baby supplies, not Coke 45. This is for food and baby supplies. It puts money back into local economy like bodegas, grocery stores, and supermarkets. We don't want people buying food outside the city.
Families who receive the debit cards will be required to sign an affidavit confirming they will only use those cards to purchase food and baby supplies. The mayor's office says the pilot program is expected to save the city about $7.2 million a year.
But they say we get handouts. They tell us to stop looking for a handout. I don't care if they're not going to go use it to buy coats or a Coke 45 like Eric Adams said, because you know why? They're just going to steal it anyway. Yeah, I said it. Oh, I put that stereotype on them heavy. They're just going to steal it anyway. How many stories have I done? Has Kid Gravity talked about, or Blacklight Revelations? And shout out to Blacklight because he has a whole channel dedicated to this called Undocumented. I highly suggest that y'all subscribe to it, where we talk about a lot of the stuff, where he talks about a lot of stuff that they don't talk about like on mainstream involving them. So it doesn't matter if it's going to be used for what's on this list. It's the fact that they spent $53 million to give it to them. I don't care if it's only one time. Now, what I thought was interesting was this part right here.
Food
Hold
outside
on.
the city.
Saves more than $600,000 for taxpayer funds a month. Again, this looks like, sounds like, and is a handout. It doesn't matter what it's used for. It's the fact that you gave it. That's free money that you just gave them. And you spent $53 million of probably taxpayers' money to fund that. While they telling us to work hard and pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, what are they doing? The complete and utter opposite. That's why I don't listen when PC says that crap. I find it interesting that PC seems to be so outraged about this now, but when this was a few months ago, they were all for Governor Wills sending the South of Borderians by bus to Chicago and New York because they knew what neighborhoods they were going to land in. But now that it's affecting them, now that it's touching them, now they have an issue. Now you're in the same boat as us. They're telling you who they are prioritizing. November 5th is going to be a very interesting day. The lead up has been interesting so far. But the day of and that week as a whole, in my honest opinion, is going to be even more interesting. Let's move on to the next story. This next story is actually an article, but it's a video attached to it as well, but it's in another tab. So Jeanine Pirro, my goodness, I can't stand Jeanine Pirro. And shout out to Kid Gravity. I don't know if he's still in here. He actually talked about this on his channel, I believe, yesterday. So Jeanine Pirro, she called her colleague an Oreo. Now, her colleague, he looks like he could pass. I'll be completely honest. But when you look at him, you're like, oh, I can see it's something there. But he definitely could pass. And I'm going to read the article first, and then I'm going to play the video after. On the 6th day of this year's Black History Month, during a segment on The Five, Fox News co-host Jeanine Pirro used a racial slur and called her Black colleague an Oreo. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the term Oreo is a disparaging and offensive term defined as a Black person who was perceived as adopting the characteristic, mentality, and behavior of white middle-class people. What prompted Pirro's outburst? The New York City Mayor Eric Adams, or rather his recent boast about having a quote-unquote chocolate administration. During a public appearance at a community event in Brooklyn last Wednesday, Adams alleged that one of the reasons critics target him is because of the ethnicity and racial makeup of his deputy mayors. Adams told the 5 deputy mayors to stand up, saying they need to see you. Have you ever seen this much chocolate leading the city of New York? And then go down the line. Look who's here. This is representative of the city. That's why people are hating on me, Adams continued. On Tuesday's show, Pirro turned to her Black co-worker, Harold Ford Jr., a former Democratic congressman from Tennessee. When I was reading this line, have you ever seen this much chocolate leading the city of New York? I mean, I didn't know whether that was offensive. Is that offensive to the people he was referencing? She asked Ford. Ford's response was, perhaps Adams was simply trying to say there's a vast amount of African-American leadership. Pirro then referred to Adams as being articulate, which can be another loaded and racialized term. She continued down this train of thought, asking, why did he call them chocolate? He might not have had enough time. He might have been trying to condense it, replied Ford, while adding that he would have handled the situation differently. Co-host Greg Gutfeld and Dana Perino then interjected, saying that Adams' audience should not have been offended. You're like my Cadbury egg, said Gutfeld to Ford. Perino quipped back, saying he's my Snickers. Things got even more awkward when Pirro exclaimed, Oreo, that's it. Gutfeld, Pirro, and Wilder started laughing, but Ford seemed affronted, asking, an Oreo? Did you just call me an Oreo? Like I said, I'm going to play the video so y'all can actually see the exchange. Pirro confirmed that she did saying, yeah. Ford then went on to explain that an Oreo is a black on the outside, white on the inside. As they approached the segment's end, Pirro seemingly tried to extend an olive branch for her statement, saying, Harold, we love you. I love you. You okay? I'm fine, Ford said. Mr. Mayor, thank you. As of yet, there has been no disciplinary action levied yet against Pirro for her remarks, and there won't be. And there won't be. Now, this is Jeanine Pirro. Let me zoom out a little bit so y'all can see her parakeet looking self. Now, if someone called Jeanine a graham cracker live on the air, she would have something to say. And we know she would. But let me go ahead and actually play the exchange for y'all so you can see for yourself, so you can hear it and see the response.
I would have said it differently.
And by the way, this is him right here. This is the one where this is who she called the Oreo. Like I said, when you look at him, like I said, he could pass.
It's a compliment.
Yeah.
And look at this woke mayor. But you got to keep in mind, y'all, this is Fox News we are talking about here.
I don't think anybody in the room was offended.
Yeah, no one in the room was offended. Not
Harold, you're like my Cadbury egg.
He's my Snickers.
My peppermint patty, an Oreo. That's it. All right, that's enough there. Okay.
You call me an Oreo?
Yeah. Okay, next.
Black on the
Okay, do you like the fact that he?
And listen to, like I said, really listen to how it was. That was a nervous laughter from him. That was forced laughter from the person they said that about. But the rest of them around him, they thought this was so hilarious. They thought this was so gut busting, tears coming out of their eyes, having to catch their breath. Funny. I mean, they were laughing so hard. You heard the first guy laugh. He kicked in high gear with his villain laugh. And you had the white woman, the blonde, come back behind him and says, "My Snickers," or Snickers. And then Jeanine says, "Oreo." And all he could do, and I think that was that Jesse Waters sitting there? I'm not sure. I can't tell. The video's kind of blurry. And all he did was a forced laughter and said, "Did you just call me an Oreo?" Like black on the outside, white on the inside. And like Kid, I'm gonna echo what Kid Gravity said in his live yesterday. This is who they want us to align with. So on the one hand, you got the Democratic Party, who historically hasn't done anything for black people, but black people keep going over there and saying that they're going to do or they have done, but they haven't shown what they're going to do or have done. And on the other side, you have this, where they say we'll be better fit over there, but will we though? Will they though? Miss Renee, you said, but he's pink on the outside. Actually, Miss Renee, read what Jennifer Wade just commented. She said both of his parents are fair-skinned black people, kind of like what's his name? Steph Curry. His uncle, she said, his uncle helped us with my grandma's funeral in 2007. That's why I say he could pass. Like, if you look at him, of course, at face value, you would think that he's a white guy. But the thing is, if he was a white guy, Jeanine would not have made that comment. See, to all of the people out there who are lighter in skin tone or look like y'all could pass, don't think for 1 second that they don't know who you are. Don't think about it for 1 second. They know. So you could try to blend in and have this imitation of life fantasy all you want, but they know who you are, just like we know who you are. But I bet you it's not one black person who would ever have called him that. They did that live on television, unapologetically, and thought it was funny. Like Amazing Lucas says on his channel all the time as of late, lineage of evil. And it was very coded language, like someone just said in the chat. It was very coded language for what they wanted to say. But this is who they are. This is what they want us to align with. I told you, they can't get me. I've already, again, independent. I have no, this shows you right here why I have no allegiance to either side. None. One side won't do anything for us, and the other side has shown they don't want us anywhere near them. And I'm fine with that. But to those who want to like duke it out over who's better and what, y'all have at it. Leave me out of it. I'm going to just back away and let the sparks fly. Eventually, it's going to incinerate itself. But yeah, they insulted this man. And they thought it was hilarious. But like I said, if somebody was to call Jeanine a graham cracker, because that woman is Lebanese, by the way, in case y'all didn't know. For the longest, I thought that she was south of the Bordarian herself. But if someone was to call her that, what I just said, she would be so up in arms. She would probably be trying to take out a lawsuit. If it happened live on the air like it did, she would probably try to have them fired. But he had to just sit there and take it. Had that been me, I would have got up from that table and walked off mid-show. That's where he messed up. It's no way I would have sat there. It is no way I would have sat right there after they said that. Because it started with this one right here, then this one right here, then Jeanine said what she said, and he started laughing, and now you have to be, while they're comfortable with what they said about you, you're sitting there in discomfort. Internally, he was probably pissed off, as he should have been. Because like I said, it wasn't enough for them to just say it. It's that they did it live for millions of people to see and hear it, and nothing, and I mean nothing, is going to happen to them for what they did. But they will get up here all day, every day, and say what is wrong with us. I've been told people about Jeanine. I've talked about Jeanine several times over the years. That woman has a staunch anti-black spirit and aura about herself. And not once, to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, has this chick ever been checked for the stuff and the filth that she says about black people. If she said it, please let me know, because I must have missed it. I wish I would. If she had said something, I would not have wanted to miss that opportunity to really like call her out and pretty much laugh about the situation. Jerry said, how come Jesse didn't say something? Because he's anti-black himself. Remember who Jesse Waters replaced. He replaced Tucker Carlson. And to show you, even to prove to you even more how anti-black Fox News is, remember when Tucker Carlson got taken off the air and the interim replacement was a black man? Man, you should have saw the comments people left all over X about this. They was up in arms. They was mad as hell because Tucker Carlson, being the premier quote-unquote PC man over there, gone, and now his temporary replacement, who was just a substitute, he wasn't there permanently, was a black man. They were so upset by that. But when Jesse Waters came in and became the permanent replacement, you would have thought the clouds cracked open and that the heavens opened up and that the angels were about to descend to earth. Exactly, Kid Gravity. This guy, Harold Ford Jr., got a wake-up call live on the air. It's rare that that happens, but it can happen. And in this case, it did. I don't know what he's like, what kind of response he gave from this, because I haven't seen any statements come from him as it pertains to how he felt about that situation. But I could tell by the tone of his voice, he was very pissed by that. He just didn't express it while he was there. But like I told you, had that been me, first off, I wouldn't even be around them. That's number one. But hypothetically speaking, had it been me and I was there, I would have got up right there and walked off right there. But guess what? They would have still had something to say. Why are you being so sensitive? It's only a joke. You know that's what they would have said. Them right there at that table and the people watching. You know that's exactly what they would have said, or something along those lines. Okay, y'all. That is going to bring this live stream to a close. This has been a wonderful show. Like I told y'all, it was a lot of updates that we had to go through first before we got to the main ones, but I saved that one for last because that's the one I knew I was going to talk the most on. But shout out to everybody that has come through to the live. Shout out to everybody who contributed to the super chat. Jay Cage and Black Voltron Reloaded. Shout out to y'all, and shout out to Blacklight and AW1 for becoming for continued membership on the channel. Shout out to Denise, Carla, and Val for becoming new members of the channel. I greatly appreciate that as well. Shout out to everybody on Patreon, in the Discord, on Twitter and Instagram. I appreciate you all as well. You will get the 11 a.m. video tomorrow. It'll be an Operation Protect the White Woman on that Bryn Special woman. I'm not exactly sure who it was, but it was the chick that I talked about last year who stabbed her boyfriend or that man she was dating like 100 times and got found guilty for involuntary manslaughter. Well, guess what? Found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. All she got was 100 hours of community service. If that's not Supreme Operation Protect the White Woman right there, I don't know what is. And that was another PC man that she took out. So y'all will be getting that video tomorrow. The poll for the videos that I have lined up coming up for next week will be going out on Sunday at 8 a.m. per usual, like I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. So be sure to look out for that on Sunday. Another Patreon video will be going up on Sunday as well. So for those who are subscribed to the Patreon, be sure to be on the lookout for that. With that being said, y'all enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening. Enjoy and have a good and safe weekend. I hope that the Chiefs lose on Sunday. Not that I really care, because I really wanted it to be the Lions versus the Ravens in the Super Bowl, but it is what it is. Be safe and be one.